Hey all, another off-season war here, up against DSVG, as you can tell by Munash, may have heard of him. Bunch of absolutely incredible players in this alliance, and they always have very smart placements. It's always interesting planning against them. But, off-season, so we're not really worried about the competition aspect, but we appreciate that pretty much all of them placed without the recoil tree masteries and creatively, so there's good practice to be had here. So against Apocalypse, his specials could be a problem if those Furies stacked, maybe. Not really. I saw my friend Vega do this once back when he was in SSX, and he actually made a small mistake and got up to like 7 or 8 Furies, and his Guardian just laughed at the damage. So knowing that in the back of my mind, I really was not worried about this. But I know that this is a very good counter, and because power struggle means that we should be able to pretty much avoid the Furies, I'm going to try to. I'm also using this as an opportunity to practice the timing on properly parrying his specials to get the perfect block. As you can see, we are still at a full yellow bar here. Now, I'm not getting the power gain that Guardian normally gets from timing those properly, but it does take them all the way down to 0, not just nothing. And so that's really nice. There, I intentionally blocked a few more hits than normal, chipping away at the perfect yellow health bar, because I wanted to push him to his second bar of power so we could get our second bar of power and just finish off the fight that much faster. But in season, you wouldn't necessarily need to do that. You could just continue to play it safe and not lose any health at all. Fantastic counter, great practice. Spider-Gwen is definitely good placement here because, in case you haven't run into this yet, if you use somebody like Corvus, who is a fairly common choice for these nodes, she will eat his True Strike because it is an active buff, and then you will have a very bad time. A lot of the other possibles that people use, or even cheesing it with somebody like Thing or Omega Red, might have trouble with her high evade chance, and then you're going to eat brute force. Nick or Moleman would also obviously work very well, but basically, as soon as we pushed her to her first special and got that True Strike up with Killmonger, this fight was basically over. She does have a couple Furies. We haven't played this perfectly, and that's just more likely on this second node, because you have to actually rely on landing or taking hits to build power. You can't just rely on their power to get your specials. But we're still only at 3. We're at 98% health, and she's at 4. No problem. Took a little bit more than I had to there. I was kind of surprised by the timing of that special there. Ended up blocking a hit instead of fully dexing it. But still, easily handled. If this were season, I could probably fix that with a level 2 potion. I don't know if I still have one. Haven't seen those in a long time. Anyway, was checking to see if I was clear all the way, and now I'm moving into section 2. So first up, we're going to have Modok on Spite. This can potentially be dangerous, because a lot of the options that are best for him do have some kind of buff, and most of the people that you'll use to deal with his auto block are not going to have power control. However, I have found that Killmonger, just by keeping the tempo of the fight up, is able to keep Modok quite aggressive, and so I've never had a problem on this node. Let me just knock on wood there. I've so far not had a problem on this node with Modok not throwing his special one when I want him to. We also are kind of making a point of dexing a little bit early to not always trigger the dexterity buff, so we don't have Spite up the entire time like we could potentially. We're also staying away from him after we knock him down, because then he'll gain a ton of power there. I could have and probably should have thrown on a pre-fight from Mr. Fantastic here. I had one to spare. It just slipped my mind in off-season. But it would be blunting that spite even more and making this fight that much safer. So I definitely would recommend it. Also worth saying, I am not boosted for any of these. That's kind of the big thing about off-season war that makes real placements like this such great practice, is that you're taking the same fights, but with less attack and less health. So on to Mangog. I have taken this particular placement before, although I think it's been probably a few months, because I think it was in season 26 before the shortened one, so yeah, it's been quite a while. But it's really quite safe. The one thing that you have to do, which I am going to do here, to make it safe is just use a power start for Reed. We have so many of these in overflow. I currently have 8 I haven't claimed, that I didn't mind burning this in off-season. But you use a power start so that you can then push to your special 2 really early and get 2 petrifies up and thus be at 80% power reduction. Once you're there, Kinetic Transference basically stops mattering. Mangog's passive power gain pretty much stops mattering. And then you can control the fight. Because you are also stacking suppression, he's not going to gain many of his rage stacks. I'm making a point not to use 5-hit combos because that's going to give him extras. But he's not going to be throwing 3 more of those special ones, which is what he would need to gain his unstoppable and unblockable buffs. Now, if he gets to, 9, then sure, we'll hold a special to make sure that we can counter it. But as you can see, he just got his second bar of power, and he's already down below half. Now we've thrown our second special 2. We are now reversing his power gain. We reverse any kinetic transference when we block a hit. See, there we go. I threw a heavy, and his power actually went down. Because between the 3 suppressions and the Petrify Mastery while he was stunned, yeah. Like I said, once you get your first special 2 with Reed on that fight, it's basically over. By the time you get your second special 2, good game. I've never taken a Mojo with Reed, but based on how that one worked, I had a feeling that pretty much the same approach would work. You see there I checked to make sure I still have my power start up. Now this Mojo does have Feet of Indestructible, so he's not going to be taking a lot of damage from our special 2 itself. But I figure that if I get the rest of the fight under control the same way I did for Mangog, then I won't have anything else to worry about. And because as soon as I get my first special 2 off, I'm going to be blunting everything else he does, I can probably play around his prompts as well, too. Like, as long as I don't get, dodge a hit, block a hit, dodge a hit, block a hit, then if I get, like, charge a heavy attack, or hold block, or stun a champion like I do right here, I can just back off and play around it. Now, there the evade helped, but even if I had dexed that, it doesn't really matter as long as his prompt doesn't get completed. So like I said, I could have evaded and I would have been fine as long as his anti-life field wasn't up. But you also saw just how powerful having that evade is. I dodged most of that special 1, didn't have to worry about dexing it, and he didn't gain all of that power, even only at 20% from kinetic transference. So this was actually an incredible matchup. Sure, he's indestructible for pieces of it, but this is going to take less than 90 seconds. Very, very happy with how that testing went. Like I said, unboosted other than the power start. If you needed this to be safer and get set up faster, you could also use a power back boost for science, and both of those would have been that much simpler. Very successful testing. And I feel like most of the rest of the battle group had kind of similar results. Everything went at least interestingly well. And so I'm feeling pretty good about how we're positioned heading into this season. I think we're going to have some good stuff for you, and I think that the Alliance is going to do pretty well. Looking forward to it. Anyway, I will catch y'all next time. Take care.